Welcome back to Beyond the Helmet. I'm your host, Steve McGrath, and in this episode, I am pleased to bring you Jeremy Kelley. Now, Jeremy Kelley is the NFL Alumni Manager for the Buffalo Bills. So his job essentially is to make sure that all of the Buffalo Bills former players are kept in the loop and continues to engage with them, giving them that sense of the community that maybe they lost after they stopped playing in the league. But Jeremy has done that for 3 years, but came into that job having for between 2011 and 2016, grinding it out from the NFL, the CFL, the AFL, doing everything it took to chase the dream as a wide receiver. So he has that player's mentality that he brought over to this side, this job that I had frankly never heard of until I came across him. So I'm going to let him tell his story about what he's doing, how he does it, how he got there, and a little bit about the playing days as well. So without any further ado, here is Jeremy Kelley, Buffalo Bills Alumni Manager. All right, I am pleased to be joined by Jeremy Kelley, the Buffalo Bills NFL Alumni Manager. Jeremy, how's it going today?
Doing good, man. Doing good. We got some sunshine and warm weather here in Buffalo, so I'm happy with that.
Yes, now it kind of feels like that time of year where we actually get to start to go outside and really enjoy it despite anything else that's been going on in the world.
No question. Yeah. I know, obviously, it's weird, unprecedented times right now, but look, man, there's a silver lining in something. You got the opportunity to wake up every day and choose that attitude that you step forth with. So let's make the best of what we got right now.
Definitely. And that being said, just with everything that has gone on, jumping kind of right into what you're doing for your work. I mean, if you are, it essentially feels like you're in charge of doing a lot of coordinating with everyone in the Bills alumni group. How does all of a sudden not knowing what you're able to do, how many people you can get together in one space, how does that affect just you trying to do your job?
It absolutely affects some things, for sure, but there's other things that remain the same. You know, my job basically is to connect, celebrate, and engage with our legends, as we refer to them as. And Buffalo is not really a destination location, as I always say, and so there's not a whole lot of them that live here. We certainly do have a small pool, but most of those guys are remote. So my job has been consisting of a lot of, utilizing Zoom and getting creative in certain ways to get that face-to-face contact, meetings that we don't have now as an option because of travel restrictions. But phone calls and all those things, emails, those all remain the same. But as far as events and the appearances and the engagements and things here in Buffalo, we're flying guys in and doing those type of functions. Obviously, that's been pushed to the wayside for now, and as it's not a priority, as you can understand. So, like I just said, man, you do the best of what you have. I think this, and coming out of this time, we are going to find a new way to do things. People have had to get creative, and I think it's been a benefit in a lot of different ways. So, we'll hopefully we get back to, I think we will see football this year, no question. Hopefully we see those fans in the stands and we can just be back to business as normal.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot of optimistic reports that it feels like everything points to there is a way that we can still get this, and it's not going to be too different than what we have, come to expect in years past.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we'll see. So I did want to ask though, how big is this network? About how many guys, just ballpark, are you actually reaching out to and coordinating all this stuff with?
Yeah, so we refer to this, our fraternity, the NFL, as it's a very small, exclusive pool of only roughly 27,000 to ever play this game at the highest level. I mean, so when you really put your mind around that's a small pool of guys, which is why we refer to all of them as legends. Somewhere along the course of their career, whether it been high school, college, or pro, they were probably a legend, whether it's in their neighborhood or whether you're Bruce Smith and the all-time sack leader, right? You were recognized at some point as being great at what you did if you made it to the NFL. And so personally, or here at the Bills, from a market standpoint, we have roughly 700 guys in our database that we have contact information for, whether that's phone number, email, address. but I certainly have active emails for over 400 guys. And so on a daily basis, we have private Facebook group forums and certain social media pages and things that are dedicated specifically to Buffalo Bills legends. And so on a daily basis, I'm interacting with 150 plus guys that will see some type of activity post or make comments regularly. So for me, I love that because if I can see that means 150 are getting it, players talk, teammates talk. So there's more than that are seeing what's going out there, whether it be updates, whether it be functions, whether it be resources, benefits for former players, and word of mouth is certainly makes it my job easier. So a lot of what I do, I thank my guys for, because I'll put something up and then I'll get a phone call from a legend that I don't have contact info for, and they make it easy for me. So I owe a lot to them, certainly, for sure.
Well, it certainly sounds like a lot of this is driven by you and what you're doing, which I would imagine comes from the team, or is it more league driven? How does, what are
A
the...
combination of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I dive into that, the NFL, I think, recognized that there was a need in this space to really up to raise the bar for former player and former player care and former player engagement. You can imagine, and I know this, I've experienced it a handful of times. When you get cut from a team, you get your cleats in the trash bag and it's, we'll see you later. You don't hear from that team again. Whether you played there for a month or whether you played there for 6 years, depending on your relationship. Some guys are very fortunate to have those strong, firm relationships based on their impact. But for a majority of guys in the NFL, it's very transactional. And the league wanted to repair those relationships and to celebrate these guys. As I mentioned, they're part of that small pool. And so they created what's called the Legends Community, and essentially encouraged all 32 clubs to embrace this community and to encourage them. A lot of places already had alumni departments, right? Some did not. And so now the clubs have started to hire personnel specifically dedicated just towards whether it's player benefits or former players. And so here at the Bills, I'm fortunate enough, right in my own backyard, to have received a phone call from the team and said, hey, we want you to come and interview for this role. And I'm thinking, what role? I didn't apply for anything. But man, by the grace of God, and I think, a little bit of the proximity principle and putting yourself around good people that can see the work you're doing and care that you have for something, it afforded me an opportunity to serve guys like myself. And so here we are. We have great ownership that truly supports what we do in our former players space, in our alumni department. And so it's been great, man. I can say the Bills Legends community and what we've done here is atop the league. And we like to try to set the standard and to make it better than we found it. So it's been a good 3 years thus far.
And since you alluded to it, do you mind talking about how you actually get this job? Because I mean, if you didn't even apply for it,
Right.
I guess the qualifications and everything else were sort of, it was more personality and, just finding a loose fit for how someone could get into this, because it's not exactly like it's one of those jobs that you have a very close related thing that you were doing beforehand to get there.
Yeah. So, like anything, I think when you're looking or searching, you're in that space. You're a lot of people say it's who you know, right? Well, I didn't know somebody here at the Bills, but it was a good relationship. But it wasn't a close friend. It wasn't necessarily. It was just somebody I knew from the area growing up here in Buffalo, and he's a former player that hey, maybe you want to check this business symposium out. So I was going through my personal transition as a player. Knew I was on the outs. Couldn't really perform anymore at the level I needed to based on some medical stuff. And I went to a business symposium that had a career fair, which in turn led me to the NFL executive job shadow at the league offices. So, okay, let me take this little 3-day thing over here. And one thing just led to another, and sure enough, the phone rings. And as I just mentioned, it was Marlon Kerner, former second-round pick for the Buffalo Bills, and said, hey, we want you to come and interview for this role, which he previously held before he jumped over to the player engagement side. And, I said what I said. I said, well, okay, yeah, sure, right? Obviously, being in the space I was at, I was looking for opportunity. Went in, interviewed, and it was, I ended up doing what I needed to, I guess, right? Making a good impression. the irony of this situation, because there was a piece of me that was still staying in shape just in case, right? You still hold on to that like sliver of hope. You're like, man, maybe I make one last go around at it. And I think a lot of players probably experience that. You know, when it's all said and done, you want to be able to sit back and tell your kids or whoever that, I left it all without any what ifs at all. And so I was still kind of, holding on to that. And that same week that I got the job offer, the receiver coach here at the time called me and said, hey, I need you to get out of your CFL contract. We're trying to bring you in for a workout. So I got a job offer in his hand. And a couple of days later, I get a call to come and work out. So I said, Coach, they just offered me a position in the front office. And he said, I did not know that. Without hesitation, he said, you're going to take that job. You'll work in this league a lot longer than you'll play. It was some of the best advice I ever got. And I was at peace. And I found myself in a position to be able to serve and be around the game. It's been great.
That's awesome. And you always love to hear when you get good advice, someone that wasn't specifically working in the best interest of the football team. He looked at you as a person and wanted to make sure that he put you on the right path when he could have just been like, forget that, you can always get another job.
Yeah. So that's a story, man, and here we are.
That's great. And to be able to help guys that are navigating a situation that is very similar to yourself, like you said, there's only 27 or 1,000 guys to have ever played the game, which is more or less like a town. If you think about the entire population, it's no more than just a town on the map of guys that have ever experienced it. It should be you that's actually helping them guide this, and for you to be able to help provide a roadmap of sorts of how to get there, how to keep them engaged and feeling that. And I'd imagine that's probably the hardest part of, walking away from the game is you losing that connection, whether it's because that's how you identify yourself or that's just your social network. I mean, in your experience, what was the most difficult aspect for you? Because that competitor and you always wanted to always be ready to jump out there. And then on the other side of that, from the guys that you've worked with, are they feeling the same type of challenge, or would you say it's more scattered? It's different for every person?
Yeah, so to address the first part of that question, I think every player goes through their own transition. Everyone has their own unique story, no question. You leave the game for those exact reasons that you pointed out, that sense of community, that brotherhood, that structured regimen that you don't get anywhere else. It's a league full of highly functional individuals. Some guys are certainly smarter than others. You got your Ryan Fitzpatricks and then whatever, but everybody's highly functioning in this league, man. You can't play this game and not have some special skill set or mentality to go out there and be able to process information at such a high level. And so when you leave and you lose that, you lose the structure. And day one, when you started playing this game, you've been told where to be, how to be there, how to dress, what time it starts, what time the bus leaves. Everything is so structured for you. And, there's some guys that show up as rookies that were blue star 5-chip prospects that were flown and catered to and supported and recruited. They never went to the airport by themselves, never been on a plane outside of a chartered flight. So these are things that need to be thought about when we bring these guys in. So, fast forward, when you leave the game, there's still a lot of guys that have always had somebody take care of things for them, right? So that presents challenges, right? Myself personally, I was one of those guys that was always in and out and had a transient journeyman type career. So I was able to actually build some skills along the way, having been out of the game and looking for work, and getting a job here and there. I actually worked for Rob Gronkowski's father at his fitness store one year, in between contracts. And so I was able to build a little bit of that skill set and kind of get used to that transition and start to prepare. But some guys that have, 8, 9, 10-year careers, certainly these alumni before all the programs and things were in place, I couldn't imagine what they were going through or who they were looking to, because a lot of the times at that point, maybe the relationship between the team and the player was transactional, as opposed to this community that we have now, this community of care and serving the player and making sure that their transition is seamless from the time they come in to the time that they leave this league.
Got it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's such a big part of what you're doing. you've mentioned ownership. So, I mean, how much has the Pegula family come in and, made that an emphasis? And does it ever go to the point of, while guys are active on the team, are you starting to build that, relationship with them of like, we want to make sure that once you're out of here, you're gone from here, but you're not forgotten?
Mhm. So yeah, I can certainly speak from the time that I've been with the club here under the Pagulas for the past 3 years, and with Sean McDermott and Brandon Bean and their regime that's come in. They preach this message, and I'll echo it. They talk about making the players the best versions of themselves when they come here to Buffalo. And being somebody who's been in this community, who's known people with the club prior to working for them and seen different things, and you can see the difference in culture, man. It's night and day. And from top to bottom, I mean, any good club and anybody that spent some time in the league will tell you there's talent on every roster in the NFL. The parity in the league is we see it every year, but it starts at the top. It starts with the care from up top. And I can speak to the Pagulas, the way that they service our alumni and the resources that they provide me and Marlon Kerner to do our jobs is second to none. It's really, really, really been great. And I feel comfortable and confident saying that. So as far as the engagement with the current guys on the roster, yeah, walking around the building and these guys see me in the building on the business side, and kind of, getting the looks like, who is this guy? He looks like he plays, type of thing. When you're in the calf, you try to introduce yourself, try to let them know, hey man, I do this and that. Or if you got a guy that's on the back end of his career, fortunately we did last year with Lorenzo Alexander, who retired. Zoe and I have built a relationship over the past few years, just through being in community engagements. We were able to sit down, and I was able to explain to him and share some things with him. He's very well versed. He's an NFLPA executive committee member and things, but there were some things that he wasn't privy to. And it's, look, man, how can I serve you? This is what we have. These are the key things that I want you to make sure you take note of as you're getting ready to exit, and then we move forward. We try to do our best and to get these guys off to a good start once they're done playing.
That's great. And I apologize, I pronounced Pegula wrong there.
Oh, no, man. Yeah, I'll get
Now, transitioning just a little bit, because you mentioned Coach McDermott, how much in the last 3 years has that culture really changed in terms of what's happening on the field? Because I know I'm only 30, but I don't recall a time that there was this type of, anticipation going into a season with this guy named Tom Brady no longer in the division, but, guys like Stephon Diggs, big name guys coming in. It feels like this is a team ready to take the next step. I mean, do you feel that? I mean, do the alumni, are they like, knocking down your door, being like, hey, let me get to one of these games?
Right. So that's been building over the years. You've been able to feel that more and more guys are calling. We're getting guys that come into town more frequently than they have in years past because they enjoy it, right? And some guys, everybody identifies. Some guys that play for multiple teams identify with some teams more. But I can say that a lot of our players who have played with other teams really identify with us, and I think that just speaks to the fan base. And I can tell you, as far as the anticipation in the city right now, you can feel it, even with what's going on in the pandemic and people, through social media, whatever it may be. There's a lot of anticipation from the season. The primetime games, and obviously the acquisition of Stephon, all these different things that are contributing. It's going to be, if there's 70,000 in the stadium this year, somehow, some way, it's going to be electric. I can say that because Bills fans, they do a full tilt, and there's a reason that our legends love to come back here because they get that love, man. There's so many times where I tell a guy, man, I got to get you back, this and that. He's like, I didn't think the team really embraced me. And then he sees 15 jerseys as we're walking to the stadium with his name on the back. I'm like, these people don't forget, They don't forget. And obviously the years with the Super Bowl guys, the Bruces, Jim, Thurmans, Darrells, those guys are obviously highly touted, but so many more that were very played. Leonard Fletcher's, to Eric Molds, that fans just go bonkers over, man. So to see those guys get that love when they come back, man, it just feels good, right? Everybody wins.
Oh, yeah. I've had the privilege of had Don Beebe on the podcast, and I have to say, when George Wilson came on, he was
Right.
wearing the Bills NFL alumni shirt. It was like around this time last year, saying it was the first time he went back, and
Yeah.
he was blown away. So I'm sure you're
Yeah.
shaking it like I'm sure you know,
That
because
was
you
special.
coordinated the whole thing.
Yeah. George was special. For some time, George just retired. Maybe within the past 4 or 5 years, and he had left with, it was on, I think, sour terms. I believe something happened, whether it was negotiated contracts, whatever it was. Like I said, everybody has their story. And so George ended up going to the Titans where he ended his career. But really, George, he got to start here. He was a receiver who was transitioning to safety and made his game career breaking, pick into the NFL on a Monday night game against the Cowboys. I mean, George had a really unique career and ended up becoming a captain and a staple for the Bills, which is why we have him as one of our 8 Legends Committee members right now. Man, he was huge in the community. So George is one of those guys that is really, really revered here amongst Bills fans and by the organization. So we try to get him back as much as we can, but you had to give guys time to build that bridge and let them open that door and say, hey, man, I'm ready to come back. I stood on the field with George the first time he came back to the stadium, and it's special. I always walk a few steps behind him to watch these guys kind of take it all in, and I can tell that he was very happy to be back, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy that we would do anything for.
Oh, he was glowing about it when he talked about it. I mean, I think it blew him away what it was compared to what he was thinking, going back there. So, one thing about George, I was so thrilled to talk to him is, that servant leadership mentality. And it's something that you've talked about as well. So can you just speak a little bit about how you've developed that way of, looking through the world, that lens in which you sort of figure out how to best approach a situation, who do you want to be, and how do you go about applying that? Because I'm sure at times it's a little bit trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's always that thing, ego, that gets in the way, right? I mean, I think we're all guilty of that, but I think I would resort it back to my faith, and trying to establish that foundation of serving. Um, and I got that from just great people in my life, and the people that I respect most. I recognize that they always served. Starting with my mother, who's selfless and take care of everybody else before herself. So I just tried to model that. I tried to model that, I should say. Um, when you operate with that servant leadership mentality, um, it's a lot more gratifying. One, and then two, usually that's reciprocated, right? You reap what you sow. So if you're taking care of others consistently, true of heart with an altruistic approach, usually that comes back to you. And so, good vibes out, good vibes in. And so, try to do my best there in the position. I think it's no mistake that that opportunity was presented to me, without any effort of my own. And it seems as though in life, sometimes when we aren't trying to get something done, that's usually when it happens, right? So I'm just thankful, and I'm really thankful to still be connected to the game in this space and to be able to serve. It really is a blessing.
Yeah, I imagine, and I 100% agree. I don't think it's an accident that you are where you are. When you continue to go down that vein and you day in, day out, you're true to yourself like that, and you're true to just doing good, it finds a way to come and reward you. Got to stay the course, though.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of work to be done. Personally, I think we all should be on a journey to get better, to be better. I recently read a quote: "If what you did yesterday was so great, you haven't done anything today." Right? And it's something that I kind of keep in my mind on a daily. We got to keep going. We got to keep building. We got to keep getting better. No different than when you're playing a game and working your craft. You're able to measure success so quickly. A coach can come off the field, give you a technique, and then you use it, score a touchdown. That's immediate. But in the daily life, it takes a little bit longer, right? So it's a consistent effort in that. But that's the goal, man. We can get better every day. We'll be all right.
Absolutely. And, as we get closer to the end here, I did just want to, I'm sure in 3 years, the Bills as a team have obviously grown, and it look like everything's pointing to them that upward trajectory. I'm sure the alumni department has very much been the very same under your tutelage for the last 3 years. But do you have any hard goals for maybe just yourself and what you want to do, or for the alumni, group in Buffalo overall that you're actively working towards?
Mhm. Yeah, and when I'm asked this question, it's hard to answer because I feel like I can do a lot of things. It's one of those, you always want to develop little skills and things you can, but if I do anything at all, man, I want to make sure that I leave this Legends community as the best in the league, and I want to leave the league better than we found it. In the NFL, I dedicated my life to this league. From the age of 7, you put that picture in your mind of where you want to be, right? You get there, and yeah, everybody's got a plan, but it doesn't work out in your favor. But I think this is a lesson for a lot of athletes to realize, like, there's a lot of ways to be involved in the game you love outside of playing it and outside of being a coach or outside of being a scout. I think a lot of folks don't even know that positions like mine exist. And so if I can take this as a springboard and use it to make this league better than we found it, than it is today, I'm happy with that. And that would be my goal. That would be it.
And to echo what you just said, one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you is exactly what you just said, because, even I was guilty of loving sports, not really knowing. I knew I wasn't going to go pro in anything other than being a fan. So, how do you try to find a way to, be adjacent to sports and do something that, gives you that fulfillment that you might be seeking? And to see that there's an alumni manager, it's like, well, that's a job that I'm sure a lot of people would love, but no one's probably ever heard of.
Right.
And that, if there's one thing I can do with this podcast besides honoring the legacies of guys that have played, it's showing people that, hey, there's a lot more than just being an athlete or a coach. You get cool guys like Jeremy that are doing really important things to help a bunch of people that, in a lot of ways, some of them probably more than you or I will ever know, really need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no question. And I wouldn't know, unless this opportunity and position was there, right? Because who else would guys share that with, that they would feel heard? So it certainly helps to be a former player, and it doesn't matter. Again, guys, nobody cares how long you played or what you did. It's you played the game, you suited up, you strapped up like I did, you tied your cleats. I know you hear what I'm saying. You can hear and you're listening. And so it's been good, man. It's been good to serve. It's been good to listen. It's been good to take care of cats and to help their lives. I mean, really, it's a lot of, my happiest times when I get to bring a guy back and we introduce him in front of the crowd and they get that standing ovation, and it's special. It really, really is. So it's been great. And I thank you for having me on and be able to share a little bit of my story and to celebrate these guys as we do. It's great. It's great.
Well, it's certainly my pleasure. And as we really wrap this up, I have this little thing I call the Gauntlet. It's a couple quick hitter questions that all my guests have to run through. So I hope you're ready to put the helmet on one last time.
Do it.
What's most important, having the number one offense or the number one defense?
I'm an offensive guy at skill position, but I'm a defensive player at heart. I know it, so I'm gonna say defense.
In being 6'6", do you ever look at the guys on the field and be like, you know what, I might have been better than him if I just had a crack at it? You don't have to answer.
You always got that in. Like I said, that ego is a tricky thing. You always.
I gotcha. Now, do you have a favorite sports-related memory?
Yes, I do. First time I met Dan Marino. Dan was, and there's kind of a backstory to this. I know it's a gauntlet, so I'm gonna make it really quick. I was at a Andre Reed's Hall of Fame induction ceremony. After the induction, I saw Dan Marino, and he's my favorite player growing up. I was a big Dolphins fan. I know here in Buffalo, caught a lot of heat for it. Long and short, saw him at the party, never got a chance to meet him. Fast forward, 3 years ago, I took this job, ended up seeing Dan on the field, got a chance to meet Dan, introduced him. Actually, my pops had kind of played with Dan down in Miami, practice roster and whatnot, so I made a little connection with him. and a photographer happened to grab a shot of me shaking his hand and sent it to me on that Monday. And so I still have that photo,
That
and I
is
can't
awesome.
wait to get that thing signed by him one day. And I'll cherish that. That was big for me. I don't know. It was awesome.
That's super cool. Absolutely. And I had a chance to meet Dan purely as a fan, and I had a great interaction with him as well. So I thumbs up to Dan.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, did you have a pregame ritual that you stuck to back in the day, and has it in any way translated over to any time there may be a big call or a big conference or something meeting?
Oh man. I can't say that it's transferred over. My pregame rituals for game days were a little different, obviously. Um, I'm very cool, calm, and collect here now, as you see me. But I was a special teams guy, so I had a couple of screws loose. So I was pretty amped up on game days. But like anything, man, you always find a way to get that last bit of preparation, and always, you're always doing something to just really cue it in. Dang, yeah, I would say the PB and J is probably the closest thing. I always had a PB and J before a game, but I can't say I do that today. Yeah.
Fair enough. Now, you did mention Dan Marino, but was there ever one guy you just wished you had had a chance to play with?
To play with. Golly. I think um, I think it would have been cool to play with a guy like Randy, to be able to learn from another big guy like that was just savvy and crafty as a big receiver. Um, to be able to be in the same meeting room with a guy at that skill level probably would have been special. Probably would have been special. No question.
I can't argue with that at all. Most important, is it the players or is it the scheme?
High school coach had a saying, it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmys and Joes. So I'll go with Coach and Taffy on that one.
And that's a saying I've heard here many a time. So that I think that's tried and true. Uh,
Right.
so I have one more for you. It's the last, and I think it's the most important, given everything that you've been able to accomplish so far. What is the best piece of advice that you'd give?
Leave it better than you found it. That's it. I would say that. No
That's
question.
it.
Yeah.
I love that. Simple, right to the point. Awesome.
I think that applies to a lot of things.
It does everything.
No question.
Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on, telling your story, and letting the world know that alumni managers exist, what they do, and they are making a big difference. I can't wait to see what the future holds.
And likewise, I'm looking forward to seeing your show grow here, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, brother.